Alrighty. Welcome everyone to today's webcast. We'll just give it another few seconds while a few more folks join and open their Zoom clients and get things ready. Wow, a lot of people joining today. Good. Pretty exciting. Just give it a few more seconds before we get kick-starting here.
We've got someone talking in the chat already.
So many windows to operate today on Zoom. Alrighty, should we get started?
Why not?
A few more coming in still. Just give it another 10 seconds, yeah? All right, let's get going. Welcome everyone to today's webcast. My name is Mark Ross-Smith. I'm your host today. This is the first Loyalty Data Co webcast. And today we'll be discussing everything about status matches in airlines and hotels and in the travel industry. Today, I'm joined by two esteemed guests who have a lot of experience in running airline and retail and finance loyalty programs. Joining me, we have Phil Gunter, who built and managed Australia, Virgin Australia's loyalty program. There for a long time, Phil. I think Phil's also worked with more than 20 airline, loyalty, retail, finance programs around the world. So welcome, Phil.
Thank you.
And also joining us today, we have Stuart Dinnis, who also worked at one of the Virgin brands and also ran the Virgin America Elevate loyalty program, very successful. And then ultimately that was sold into Alaska Airlines. So congratulations, welcome. Welcome, gents. It's great to have you with us today. And thanks, we will get to you shortly. But first, I want to, I should go through these slides. Firstly, we're going to launch a poll here. So everyone, click back to your Zoom client. Don't let it run in the background. There's a poll that's popped up on the screen. Please vote. So who is looking at launching a status match campaign this year, or a status match campaign, or a status challenge, or some sort of initiative around elite status to, maybe it's to acquire new members, maybe it's to generate some revenue for the airline or hotel, maybe it's because someone wants platinum, one of your friends wants platinum status. I don't know, get voting.
Everyone wants platinum status.
All right, looks like the majority has spoken here. Wow, shooting up. It looks like most people are going to run a status match campaign or looking to run something this year. Few undecided.
60%.
Cool. All right, we'll give this another second to run. All right, so 50, 70, nearly 80% are looking to either will run one or looking to run one this year. That's really exciting, actually. It's really exciting for me as well, because I've got status I would like to obtain. All right, let's get into it. First, I'm going to talk a little bit about the mechanisms of elite status around the world today, and typically how they benefit the airline, hotel, or the loyalty program. So first up, we have traditional status gifting or status matching via sales teams and corporate sales teams. And generally, this is, the sales guys going out there, doing the hard yards, meeting clients, dinners and drinks, this sort of stuff, and, enticing, wooing the high value customers of the world, trying to secure contracts for the airline, and a lot of the SME market. A lot of these SME market, they control their own travel spend, and sometimes all it takes is a shiny gold card to influence them to come try your airline. The second one is the traditional status match, which we'll talk a lot about today, and this has been around for long. It's been around about 35 years or so. I think airlines have been running traditional status matches. And generally the idea behind that is to drive incremental sales or ticket sales to the airline. The third is is what I call a traditional status match, conditional status match, where it's a combination of a match plus something else. And in the market today, we're seeing TAP, Air Portugal is most recent example of this. They ran one back in end of March this year, which was you applied with your status match. So you had, say, gold with British Airways or Iberia, and you sent them an email and you said, hey, look, I've got gold status here. And then what would happen is you had to purchase a digital product from the loyalty team. And so they've got a subscription service where you can essentially buy miles over a year. And so the plan started about $122 US. And what that means is that's over a year. And over a month, over a year, you would get 14,000 miles into their program given to over the period of months. So it's sort of about 1,000 miles a month you would get. So you would have to have status with one airline, and then you had to buy a subscription to buy miles ongoing. And then when you had done those two things, you'd email the airline, you'd wait back to hear, and then maybe you get given Air Portugal status, maybe yes or no. There's a few reports of people saying it takes a long time. So that's the third. Fourth traditional way is status challenges. These are becoming popular in recent years. A lot of US airlines have really been on this for a while. And the idea behind that is trying to link status to ticket or guaranteed ticket sales. So the idea is you've got status, yes or no, and then you sign up for this challenge, and then you've got to take a minimum number of miles or flights or segments with that airline or hotel to sort of secure your status long term. So for example, American Airlines, if you want to run, if you're interested in a status challenge with them for their platinum tier, which is their mid-level elite tier, you pay $400 US upfront. You get your status upfront for, I believe it's 3 months, and then in that 3 months, you've got to complete the challenge essentially, which is a set number of miles. And different airlines have different qualification requirements on that. You know, can it be anywhere between sort of 10, 20,000 miles? So it's a big chunk. It's not 1 or 2 flights. It's generally that period that you've got to of that challenge period is basically prorated over the year. So you're essentially doing what the airline wants to do in that short time. If you extrapolate over a whole year, it would be the equivalent of earning it legitimately. And the final one is status extensions. I think we're seeing every airline, every hotel has extended their status. I just read yesterday Malaysia Airlines finally extended their status of all the members. And generally what this means is if you're an elite member of any airline or hotel or some other programs right now, you've got status through end of next year, at least, sometimes longer. And in fact, Hilton went one step further. And the members that didn't requalify in 2019, so that was from January to December in 2019, they actually extended those as well, even though it had nothing to do with borders being locked down and disruptions. And so there's a lot of status out there where people don't need to try and retain it for next year. And you know, we'll talk about that later as well. So the big question is, what type of status match mechanism, status challenge, status gifting, what is right for your loyalty program? I think it's important to recognize that all programs are different. There is market dynamics, there is timing, there is financial stability of the host airline or hotel, and there's a bunch of other things that we really need to look at. And so today, very pleased to introduce Phil Gunter, who's going to share his insights and a bit of the story behind his experience with Virgin Blue and Virgin Australia and the status matching and how that all came about. So welcome, Phil.
Great. Hello, Mark. Yeah, so I did build and run, or me and my team did build and run Velocity for 7 years. And now I run, or I formed a company, because I don't really run it. There's 16 of us that all do it. A company called New World Loyalty, which are experts in loyalty. Our heartland is airlines. We've actually done a lot more than 20 airlines now. But we've done all sorts of projects with airlines all around the world. But we've also looked after banks and health and casinos and fast food. We've pretty much done every category as well. But there's nothing quite like airline loyalty, which is what we enjoy most. But you want me to talk about the status match campaign we did at Virgin, and I'll share that. It was a very, very successful campaign, but it was part of a much broader group strategy. It was well thought out, well executed, but we also had a lot of luck. And what I'm going to take you through today is what we did, why we did it, and what the results were. Okay, so the context. Before Virgin Australia was a company called Virgin Blue, which was a very, very successful, like a hybrid. It was low cost, but it was pushing up into certainly well into the SME space. It was a highly profitable airline. It was focused in Australia, but it flew around the region and to LA, etc. And the strategy was quite clear. It was focused on people who pay for their own tickets, whether they be SMEs or leisure. It didn't have a very low share of corporates, less than 10%, and it had an explicit strategy not to have a platinum tier. So it was very clear, we're not that sort of carrier, very successful. But that all changed in 2011 when the airline relaunched as Virgin Australia. So new CEO wanted to make a mark, changed to Virgin Australia, and it went up market. It put free bags on, it put food on, it layered in a lot of cost, and it needed as part of the strategy, it needed to attract corporate flyers. And they had some really aggressive targets in the corporate space. And yet that space was absolutely dominated by Qantas, and Qantas had and still does, a very good loyalty program. And when we researched why would people not fly Virgin, the number one reason in that corporate space, the number one reason was Qantas Frequent Flyer, the power of Qantas Frequent Flyer. And so at Velocity, we knew we had a task on our hands, because unless the airline could attract that market, the strategy wouldn't work. And yet there was a very good reason for them not to try the airline. So what do we do? First thing we did is we built a much better program. Now, Velocity was already a very, very good program. Right? Very proud of what it was when it was Virgin Blue, but it was targeted at people paying for their own tickets. And it had some great things, had fantastic reward seat availability, etc. Had some very innovative ways of earning points and burning points. But it wasn't as good as Qantas on several elements. And we also knew that we couldn't match them on something. We were never part of a alliance. We added 600 dots on a map through partnerships, but it wasn't the same as an alliance. So we knew we had to beat them on other things. So we researched, found out what people found frustrating with not just Qantas, but the industry generally, and solved many of those problems. So things such as fly ahead, which allowed people turn up at the airport if there was a seat on the next plane to get on it without charging them $300, because those things just peed people off. And we proved that you could do that and not impact the yield, which was what the big fear was. There was a lot of family benefits, because a lot of our customers were in the sort of 30s, a lot of them were having kids. We put in parental pause, and I had people crying when I told them about it, literally crying, because it was so unfair in their mind that they were going to lose their status when they had a baby, or even the fathers. And so we removed those fears. We put in 4 upgrades a year. We guaranteed reward seats as long as they put far enough ahead. We put in partner benefits. We put in loads of stuff, which was quite funky at the time. A lot of it's been copied since. And we were very confident that the program was really good, right? But we knew that Qantas was really, really good, and we needed people to try us. Right? And that was the problem. How are we going to get people to try us? This is where the luck comes in. So in the end of, this was all going on 2011. At that time, Qantas, for the first time in its history, went into a bit of turbulence with some safety issues. They were having some really bad PR at the time. Virgin, on the other hand, just relaunched, had some great PR. And we recognized there was a very small window where people were looking and thinking, well, maybe we'll give these guys a go. But all the research said, all of it said, there's no way in the world a platinum Qantas member is going to fly on Virgin and queue up with the great unwashed. And that's their word, not mine. So we knew to get them even to try us, we had to match their status. And then we did our analysis and basically worked out, if we're going to do it, there's huge challenges with the risk with Qantas aggressively competing against us. So if we're going to go big, we're going to go hard. And that's what we did. We had a massive campaign above the line, all through the airports, the FFP blogs. It was all below the line for our own channels and purchase ones as well. It was impossible for frequent flyers not to know it was out there. It was the talk of the town at the time. So we got awareness up that we were offering this. And then we looked at the processes and we decided that we would lower all the barriers because it was so important for us to get these massive targets. The targets we wanted to more than double the corporate share. This was not an easy target. So we reduced all the barriers of why they wouldn't do it. So with the processes, the policies, the channels, we brought them all down. There was 2 call to actions, very simple. Show your card in the lounge, and we'll not only give you a temporary card at the time, but we'll upgrade you on that day, and we'll give you a crappy cookbook because we had loads of them and no one wanted them. But they were popular, surprisingly popular at the time. But we enticed people to come and drive to the airport if they weren't flying, and do it there and then. And we also allowed people just to email a simple picture of the card. We knew we were open to fraud. We at the time there was no alternatives. We just had to take the decision. The alternative was to put in some really draconian processes in place. So we accepted the risk, had simple processes, did the advertising, and sat back and waited. Now, regarding the risk, I'll be honest. I'll do the success in a minute, but with the risk, it was quite funny because we had Mickey Mouse come through. We knew that we were getting a fair amount of fraud. What we didn't know is how to identify it. We tried to contact some people we thought were fraudulent and turned out not to be. So it was just impossible. I mean, in the end, we had to stick our head in the sand and just accept it. But it really was hugely successful. And you've got to be careful what you wish for, because there were literally queues out the door in every lounge. The inbox of the email process blew up. We weren't set up to manage the volumes. We had literally tens and tens of thousands of applications come in a very small space of window. Again, a bit of luck, if you call it that. Qantas grounded their fleet in the middle of this and give us a free pass. But that was, it was a good problem to have, but it was still a problem. The inability to process quickly was a problem we had. The poor old Velocity team, we sent them all over the country. We sent them to every place we had a lounge, and they were manning the desk to basically help the processing, which meant there was no one left at head office to manage the program. It really was a challenging time, but it was like I say, good problem because we had thousands and thousands and thousands of applications, but it really was challenging to try and get through the volume as quickly as we could. But the all important results. Now we're not going to give you all the numbers, but it's fair to say that for a business like the size of Virgin Australia, it was phenomenal. Of the people that applied, we expected half of people not to fly at all, to be honest with you. That's our expectation. 1 in 3 didn't. Right? So 1 in 3 didn't fly at all. 1 in 3 flew a little bit, once or twice, either a one-way or a return, and that was all. And 1 in 3 were ongoing active in their tier. Right? So 1 in 3 continued in their tier. Now, given the volumes, that was enormous for us, much, much bigger than we expected. And it meant that by the end of the year, the platinum tier had grown 5 times. The gold tier had doubled as well. So I see you shaking your head there, but I remember the numbers there, Stuart. But the platinum tier had grown by a factor of 5 times. So some of that was in the relaunch. We didn't have a huge platinum tier, but it was enormous, the uplift. Very, very profitable customers. The loyalty program, the profitability tripled in 2 years. And the all important corporate share, we say here doubled, but it doubled in well under 2 years, and it tripled in in just over 2 years as well. Right. So this was the stuff we were trying to do. We were trying to get people that were previously saying we're not going to fly Virgin because of the Qantas frequent flyer to join Velocity, get the tier, and fly Virgin, and it really did work. Now I can't pretend that it was all due to the campaign, because it really wasn't. It was we executed the campaign well at the right time in an environment which just give us free kicks all the way through. But you've got to be in it to win it. And I'm really proud of what the team were able to pull off. And it has been recognised as I think one of the most successful campaigns ever. But we did have some learnings. One of the key learnings was the fact that the speed of matching was absolutely critical. That the people that matched in the lounges and the people that came in early, that we were able to match quickly before the backlog built up, were far, far more active than the ones that took several weeks to get their card. And although there could be some chicken and egg in that, it really was the difference between people who were getting their card quickly. And it kind of makes sense, because the first experience with the airline was the status match, and by being quick, it confirmed that we were a good airline. Waiting a month was just not acceptable. We definitely did have some fraud. I passionately believe that the fraud in our case was worth it. So the overall was a positive. The airline made tens and tens of millions of dollars of extra revenue from these customers, and it certainly outweighed the fraud. But we had fraud and we couldn't avoid it. But the other thing to recognise is that the timing, if we had done it at another time, there's no way in the world, I believe, we would have been so successful from a volume point of view. Not just the volume of people applying, but the volume of people applying and then flying. So I do think with these things, timing is critical. We had the push and the pull. There was a reason people were thinking about not flying with their own airline at the same time as we were giving them a reason to fly with us and some great offers. That push and pull is really important. If you don't have a push at all, then it's much, much more harder to suck them in. But I do think that you mentioned before, everyone's extended their status. Right now, with that in mind, there isn't the same need to continue to fly with your own airline. So there's this potential for people to give this sort of status matches a go. So I think the next 6 to 12 months is going to be a feeding frenzy in this space, but we'll wait and see.
Super interesting, Phil. Phil, you mentioned something funny, actually. You said you were doing matches at the airport in the lounges, on the spot. What I like about this is I was actually one of those customers. I actually drove to the airport one day. I think it was after work one day. I literally drove to the airport for no other reason. I very proudly had my Qantas Platinum card in my wallet, drove to the airport, paid the astronomical, I think it was like $50 in parking fees or whatever it was, went into the lounge. And you're right, it was actually very seamless. I remember there was a dedicated person in the lounge handling it. And they were it was a bit old school. I was kind of writing it down on a clipboard, this is Mr. Mark Smith, he's platinum. We cited his card. I mean, you can't really fake a card. So I guess that eradicates fraud there. And I remember getting the cookbook, which I never read. And what I really liked is it wasn't just okay, we've got you in the system. They actually gave me a temporary membership card. So there was like a paper card or a cardboard card, and it's handwritten, this is your name. I believe there was a number issued as well. And I remember very clearly, she said, you can start flying us today. Just show this card when you come into the lounge, or if you want to use priority boarding or anything like that. And this is your card now. So this is not, 4 weeks for a status match. This is instant. It was so brilliant. And I must say, I was in that 1/3 of the group that was active. I went on to retain status that following year. Wow. And you did do a few things to incentivize that as well. You didn't talk about, but that did help as well. And so I retained status. So I'm very proudly in that 1/3 group that made you some money there.
Well, so, there's proof, you see, Mark. We literally let anybody in.
Thanks, Phil. Thanks, Phil. But one final question before we move on to Stuart. Would you do it again? Would you run the same campaign again in today's environment? I mean, knowing this was a few years ago. Do you think it would work today?
Like I said, there was a lot of fair wind. There's a lot of things going our way at the time, and it really was the perfect storm for us. It was do you know what, since that time, I've never seen a situation like now. Right? But right back at the beginning of the status, about March time, when first of all the hotels started to extend the status, I was doing podcasts saying to people, don't do it, don't do it, don't do it. If everyone does it, you're all exposed, and that's what's happened. Everyone's done it because kind of they were always stuck. Where everyone doing it, you kind of had to. And now, as people start to fly again, I really do think there's a perfect opportunity for people to do this. Qatar's gone early, and they've shown their hand. They're going to be doing this. Others are going to do it. I'm certain about that. And then it almost forces, it's a bit like extending the status, it forces people to do it, because if everyone's doing it, if you don't, all you're going to do is lose. So I do think the next year is going to be frantic with people trying to do this, and then it won't end during the status match. It will be the airlines then need to manage the period post to keep the people that have come in, and also try and retain the people that you think may have status matched somewhere else. It's going to be an interesting year.
I think it's a perfect storm, Phil. You're right, where people will they have no incentive for the next 18 months to fly with their main airline or stay at their main hotel. They've got every opportunity now to try every other hotel or every other airline that they want to try. And status matches are a great way to get them in. So, and once someone comes across and tries your product, that's the best thing to do.
Yeah, it's going to be a really interesting time, I think. And anyone who's good at Photoshop, happy days. You get one with anyone.
Maybe that's a good segue into my piece then, because I ran the Virgin America Elevate program for a number of years prior to it being taken, the whole airline being taken out by Alaska Airlines in a takeover. Virgin America, it's a small regional operator. It doesn't fly every route in the US. And so we couldn't compete with the likes of United and Southwest and Delta and American. And so, but we knew we had the best product in the US. And therefore, when people did fly us and they did like the product and the brand, it was a great experience. And the easiest way to get them to try our product, to get hooked on our product, was to give them free status. And so whilst we had status matches, we also had status challenges. Status challenges didn't really work. They were too complex and hard for a small team to manage, and annoying for a customer. And so just by giving away a full status match, it was much more complimentary and a better customer experience. They loved our product, and therefore continued to choose us when they had the opportunity to choose us. They didn't always fly us. When they flew other routes, they used their old card from United or American or whoever else. So definitely interesting kind of dynamic in that market sense, from a product point of view or from a customer experience point of view, rather than purely a relaunch space. So that probably got me thinking a bit about status, and I guess I'm a finance guy. From my perspective these days with digital cards and everything else, I've got a bit of a saying that status costs you nothing until someone flies with you. And then when someone flies with you, you've got their money in your back pocket. It's revenue. So it's just down to managing a bit of capacity. So got me thinking, along with some co-founders over the last couple of years, about status matches and status challenges. And not a lot has evolved in this space in the last 30, 35 years in the loyalty industry. So we've actually built a status match platform. Basically, it's an automated platform. It takes control of everything that you used to do manually, process-wise. No need for customers to Photoshop or photocopy cards and send them in, or statements and send them in, like the recent status matches that have been in the market. So it eliminates a lot of fraud. We've got a full verification system-wise, and actually creates a little bit of a revenue stream. So I might take you through a little bit about that, but it's a product that I guess when I was running a program, I wish someone had come to me and pitched it, because it just takes a whole layer of manual processes out of your loyalty team and out of your business, and simplifies all of those touch points with dealing with the executive team who have got, you know, status matches for their friends and corporates that they meet through, you know, different functions. The sales team are out there trying to win corporate contacts, complaints that are coming through the guest services channel that you end up doing, you know, status upgrades for to try to satisfy a guest out of goodwill. All those types of things just get eroded away. So the team we've got that built this have run airline loyalty programs, over 20 years experience. We understand the metrics, we've seen the data, we know how to grow passenger databases. So, so it's a really good platform that we've built. Pretty simple. We've tried to address the issues that are inherent in the existing process around member acquisition. They're ripe with fraud and abuse. People encourage people to Photoshop and fake cards. It disincentivizes loyalty. It annoys your existing members. There's no validation or vetting. You know, I know myself in a recent status match, I did 2 status matches myself. One was fully legitimate, one was not. The legitimate one got questioned and I got through. The illegitimate one didn't get questioned, and after 6 weeks was just simply allowed through. So there was no vetting process on that. It was a horrible user experience as well. It took over 6 weeks. The legitimate one that went through was horrible because I had to manually go to a website and answer basically an online customer request and submit some further information. It was terrible. And so taking 6 weeks, if I was trying to fly and I was annoyed with my current airline or was about to book a ticket, taking 6 weeks to get a response back to me is atrocious and just not a good experience at all. And so that poor user experience affects brand. So SmartMatch has been built to basically focus on that customer experience element and make it fully hosted and an outsourced solution that the loyalty team and the airline guest services and contact centers don't have to deal with. It's a rules-based engine. It controls your flow, your volumes. It controls your targeted guest numbers. It's a fast verification, all online. No need for customers to submit photocopies of cards or anything like that. And it's plug and play. And we can simply set it up and within 2 weeks have it operational. So very quickly operationalize a status match program. So I guess from an experience point of view, it, you know, like most currently, we stand up a landing page, we fully host it. Someone comes through, puts in their details. They don't need to enter cards or anything like that, just puts in their loyalty number. We go away and the system has got some proprietary technology that's been built in the back end that goes and verifies that loyalty number at the other airline and returns a result. We can cover about 80% of global airline travelers, mostly through the 3 big alliances. You know, basically we can come back and we can say that member's silver, platinum or gold and status match them and allow them through, do that within 60 minutes. Customer can either pay a fee or the airline can pay a small fee to cover the verification costs. So very simple, 2 steps. As I said, customer enters a number into the landing page, verification happens in the background, they get a result back. We can set up rules engines where someone can be a silver member at one matched airline and a gold at another. We can add those 2 together to give them platinum in your program, or we can get them in with a gold and offer them an upsell, you know, for a fee up to gold, which is another, you know, ancillary revenue opportunity right now on the spot. So a couple of great processes, and then turn it around within 60 minutes and the person's upgraded. So it's a pretty simple user flow, as we see on the slide here. But basically, you know, a couple of simple pages, a verification in the background, and a triggering or an email off to the airline to upgrade the person. So very quickly done, great user experience, turns it around without the airline having to look through bunches of inboxes. You know, ways we can set up rules engines, auto approve and auto deny customers. very black and white, doesn't get argued against. It can be set up to focus on specific countries, to allow specific corporations through, to identify someone who's been status matched elsewhere and not allow them to come back. For instance, we could take the recent status match that was done at Qatar, run that through a verification process for them now, and we can also prevent those people from being status matched again somewhere else. We can also look at ones that are applied through your management team, or track corporate sales status matches, and then providing a reporting database that goes with that. And so if you've got a regional sales-based manager who always seems to be doing status matches, we can track how many they've done. We can put limits around them and provide a real-time reporting dashboard that we've got. We'll show you a slide on that in a moment. And as I said, I think it's a fully hosted option, or there's an API option. A fully hosted option, we do everything. An API option is more of a back-end fulfillment and verification system. You can still run your own status match campaign on the front end, and we can handle the volumes behind the scenes. So two ways to do it. The reporting dashboard's great. We can control volumes in real time, so you don't get overloaded, like Phil's example. We can cut it off at a set number if you've got a target that you want to grow your database by. We can control tracking by sales, individual or region, or type of channel that they come through, or executive team member. If you've got a certain executive team member that seems to go to a lot of functions and give status away every time they go out and have a drink, who knows? But there's lots of different ways you can do it. So great reporting dashboards. And then I guess you compare that to what's been in the industry without any innovation for the last 30 years. And there's a lot of different ways you can look at it around existing status match or status challenges. Both have their pros and cons. Status challenges are a little bit more frustrating to customers, higher barriers of entry. Status matches are more frustrating to airlines, where there's higher levels of fraud. Customer experience isn't great on both. They don't get it right that well. The value that's perceived in it isn't great. The SmartMatch platform that we've developed is highly adaptable to real-time controls in different channels and in different uses, whether it's an above-the-line campaign or an evergreen below-the-line campaign to support your day-to-day use. Great reporting and tracking, whereas current status challenge and status match are very manually managed within airlines today. And then zero complaints, because it's black and white. You either are or you aren't. The verification system tells us. Whereas at the moment, there can be a bit of grey, complaints around, oh, I've booked this ticket, I haven't quite flown it yet under my status challenge, please let me through. It just causes extra management time, which no one has the bandwidth for. So definitely the SmartMatch platform fits a need to improve policy and procedure around a lot of the back end. We also have done some numbers where we see it contributing a lot more in greater longer term revenue, as well as immediate revenue through the ancillary revenue challenge of either a customer paying an application fee or there being an upsell opportunity within the status match process. Traditional status matches, as Phil said, there's a huge amount of drop off. Whilst the ticket sales numbers are good, they could be better if you know more about your customer and can verify the likelihood of them flying with you. A higher barrier to entry with a paid fee also guarantees someone is more likely to be sticky to your airline in a longer term sense, and therefore your ticket revenue is greater. Status challenges also end up with a lot of drop off because people just get annoyed by having to go through a status match challenge and work out the timings of when they book tickets and things like that. So it's just not a great factor. So we've done a fair bit of benchmarking. I guess the key things are that we can have it live within 2 weeks. We can generate revenue for your airline within 30 days. So it's a great ancillary revenue opportunity. We've benchmarked those programs that have got about 1 million members. We think there's about $500,000 USD we can contribute within 30 days. So it's fast cash flow. In a current environment with no one traveling, it's an opportunity to create revenue and cash flow for the airline when the airline doesn't have very much presently. And then as the feeding frenzy starts on status extensions that have been pushed out to the end of next year when people start traveling again, I think the SmartMatch process is definitely a great way to control and manage your database, cherry pick the good customers from other airlines as people get back to traveling, and give them the opportunity to come and experience your product and experience your customer service. So that's it in a nutshell. So I think it fits a really great need in the industry. And yeah, I think as people get back to taking advantage of the opportunities and trying to work out, as people start flying and airlines put flights back out there, it's going to be an interesting, I guess, acquisition kind of, campaign environment. People will do the usual things. Let's do double points or triple points or double status credits. But I think status matches is going to be probably the ultimate way to try to attract people to come across and try your airline. And as I said, status doesn't cost you anything until someone buys a ticket and starts flying with you. And as long as you've got the capacity, which in a low flying, low travel environment like there will be coming out the back of coronavirus, out of COVID-19, everyone's got plenty of capacity. So, get your status matches going, get people coming across, sitting in your product, trying your airline lounges, trying your customer experience. Take advantage of the opportunity because it's not going to come again. People have got nothing to lose. Customers have got nothing to lose. Airlines have got everything to gain. It's good.
That's right. This is really interesting, Stuart. I've got a quick question for you. But before that, just a reminder for everyone, there is a Q&A box at the bottom. Look down, put your questions in there, and Phil and Stuart will give it their best shot to answer it live in the webinar today. Stuart, I have a question for you. If you could, you said this is the product you wish you had at Virgin America. Let's say you did have access to this product. What do you think, putting your airline loyalty manager hat on for a second, what do you think the biggest benefit for Virgin America would be for this? I mean, you kind of mentioned that airlines not make a lot of cash right now. Is it the cash flow injection? Is it that sort of high margin cash that the airline generate? Is it customer acquisition? Is it a PR thing? What do you think is the biggest benefit that you would see?
I think it's three things. I think there's a very quick cash opportunity, and it's not just cash right now. It's cash during the process. At the moment, it's either status match or status challenge, and there's no actual financial elements to it. And people kind of throw out status and kind of hope someone goes and books a ticket. I think by putting a fee in there for the customer or an upgrade opportunity to buy up from gold to say platinum, you've got a great opportunity to generate a bit of cash flow that creates some stickiness from the purchasing with you. And so someone who puts out some cash is more likely to fly with you and book that ticket at the same time. Second one's customer experience. It's often the person's first experience with your airline. If you're taking 2 or 3 or 4 or 6 weeks, like the recent example in the market took to get a response to someone to upgrade them versus the SmartMatch platform, which is 60 minutes, like the customer experience is so great. It's such a big differentiator, and that wins customers or loses customers. It's brand damage. It either backs up your brand or it damages your brand. And then the third element is basically the operationally, the back office. really simplifies and improves those processes where, I know I've had team members watching email inboxes. I've had team members trying to do data reports to monitor customers who've done status challenges and run data reports on them month by month to track their revenue bookings through. It's crazy. The SmartMatch program, we can even build into it a PNR verification that someone's booked a PNR to simulate like a status challenge, so a short term. So there's so many better benefits where you just remove all of that extra workload from the loyalty team and the back office around the call center and clunky email inboxes, and just gets that off people's plates and just wraps it up in one very simple process.
I must admit, I do wish we had it back in 2011. It would have made a beautiful thing, like perfect.
Yeah.
Taking away the pain points.
Yeah.
When I ran the status match in Malaysia Airlines, we had a similar problem where it was the first day after we'd announced it and sort of launched it a bit out there. I got onto a couple of blogs and stuff like that. Remember that the lady that I'd sort of put someone in charge of running it. I didn't really have a clue how many people would get into the match. All I knew is we needed new customers. We had a pretty strong brand. We're in one world, in a good alliance, and therefore people will want it. And we had to put a lot of rules around it. So we put rules like you could only match in from a program that where that carrier flew to Malaysia, and so that would instantly cut out, for example, all the US airlines where we didn't want a flood of American Airlines, United Airlines people trying to match into it. So we kind of put some protections around that, but we still got people from Delta and Copa and all sorts of airlines trying to match into it. You kind of have to say no, right?
But look, I'd actually say yes to all of them, being a finance guy, because if you're a small second tier airline, you've got nothing to lose. So if that person from American Airlines flies on you one day, that's great. If they use your card to fly when they're flying on American Airlines, you get all of the loyalty accrual income. How good's that? The points income from billing American Airlines for them using your card, and then also probably the lounge income and those types of things. So there's other little income sources that are ancillary to it. So if I was a second tier airline at the moment, particularly in one of the big alliances, I would be definitely out there trying to status match anyone globally.
So I'll share one other
tip. If I was a big one as well, I don't think it's a second tier that needs to be looking at this.
No, that's true.
Well, it's just because I think it's going to be, like I say, a feeding frenzy, and if you're not playing, then you're going to get eaten.
Yeah,
you have to be proven wrong. We'll see.
I see there's a comment up on the up on one of the Q&As. Michael Mason Traeger has sort of suggested that he personally wants to be wowed when he gets status matched. A 6-week process doesn't wow anyone. It doesn't make you feel loved either, Michael, does it? Or that they're interested in your business. It's terrible. Turn it around same day within sort of 60 minutes. Imagine that. That is such a great positive brand backup to the experience that you want. So shows that you're valued as a customer.
Like I said, we found that the ones that took a while were just far less active than the ones that were done immediately.
Yeah, proves it
a while ago.
All right, we've got another question here. Do you just run a technology platform, or can you help internally with the logic and some of the marketing initiatives within the airline as well?
Yeah, definitely. So, the founders and myself have all run major programs. We all understand how status works. We've designed status programs. This is simply a solution that we've got from a tech point of view that fixes a lot of the problems that exist in status match. But we intimately understand status and data around status. We know the benchmarks around the size of your database you should be aiming to have. If you want to benchmark your database, come and have a chat to us. We can work out what size you should be at. We can then work out how we can target, to grow your passenger database by more. Yeah, there's a lot of different ways that we can analyze that database. Have you got the right tiers? How do your benefits line up? We can do everything in and around status. There's no difference there. And Phil, your team at New World Loyalty definitely have a lot of experience around program design and strategy and building programs, don't they? So.
Oh, exactly. No, to be honest, yeah, I don't want to jump in, but yeah, we can definitely help with that. And the whole strategy, you got to get the strategy right. Wherever I've seen people go wrong with this stuff is where they look at it just as a tactic. And if you look at the broader strategy and do it as part of a program of work, and also it doesn't end with the campaign. It goes on for the next year. Mark sort of touched on it, but yeah, the management of the people that came in and the people that were previously in went on for like a whole year or more beyond it. And New World Loyalty could definitely help with that.
All right.
I'm just looking at Dan's question. So I'm not sure everyone can see it, but Dan's basically saying, what about existing customers? And it is that question there. So he's basically, will current customers get fed up? And it is the $1 million question. So I'll be honest, but in my experience, we did a lot of analysis, a lot of thinking, a lot of what ifs before we pulled the trigger on a campaign. And we were confident in our own program, and we were confident in the fact that our current gold, because we launched platinum, and we were worried about our current gold being fed up, that people were coming in above them. And long story short, we were just confident that the program itself was really good, and that the alternative wasn't as good. The amount they had to fly to stay gold with the competitor wasn't as was too much, and we took decisions. The important thing here was we took decisions for the long term, not the short term. We could have easily upgraded everyone that was gold into platinum tier and took away a short-term problem. We did not do that because we knew at the end of the year we'd be downgrading them all, and we would just kick a problem down the road. So we led with our chest. We put some good comms out. We had good question and answers in the call center, etc. And we just rode the problem. And I'll tell you, the noise went away very quickly. A little bit of noise and it went away very quickly. I'm not saying it isn't a problem, but do the maths beforehand and be confident in your product.
Yeah, and look, yeah, it's really around making revenue and giving other people the experience of your product. So if current environment, there's going to be plenty of supply, plenty of capacity in seats out there. Airlines need to fill them, hotels need to fill rooms. Existing customers, if they're not filling them, there's going to be plenty available for others. So I'd go looking for new customers.
So it's another reason why now's the time to do things, because I think there is more of an issue if your lounges are already full and your customers see you doing a status match. So that's a bit more of a problem, but your lounges aren't going to be full.
And even if your lounges are full over time, there's always overflow into the likes of Plaza Premium and other sorts of lounge providers that are out there that can provide partner lounge facilities. So at Virgin America, we only had one lounge, but really it was about getting people onto our product first and foremost, dealing with the capacity issues later around lounge or access to other lounges. So it comes down to your market dynamics and market by market.
So question, if all airlines are running a status match at the same time, or if there's multiple at the same time, right, in similar markets, will this be a case of people end up with 3 or 4 gold statuses themselves? Or how could airlines manage that?
Well, SmartMatch platform allows us to manage that, where we can track someone who's matched into a program and then dealing with another program prevent someone who's matched previously from matching again. So we can protect a program from being matched into by consumers that are a little bit ingenuous in their matching ability and are simply just shopping cards instead of actually having a greater likelihood to fly. So that's probably the one thing that the SmartMatch platform can do that traditional status match or status match challenge processes can't do. You can't tell whether someone's taken a match before or not. You only trust in the photoshopped card you're seeing in front of you at the time.
Yeah, actually, going back on volumes for a second, in all of the major alliances, there's sort of rules and regulation policy around the number of people that you can give free status to, people that don't hit certain qualification criteria. And I guess if you're getting if you're doing it yourself and you're getting a big influx of people coming in, I guess Phil, you didn't see this because Virgin was not in one of the 3 big alliances. So I guess this wouldn't have applied. I guess it's actually great for you. If you're not in an alliance, I guess you've almost got a license to go do whatever you want. You could go match the whole world. So I guess that's a bit of a
masters of our own destiny. We made our own rules basically, but it doesn't mean you shouldn't be careful. We still need to think through what we're doing, like I say, and we thought through not just the campaign, but what was going to happen in a year after.
Yeah, I guess you had partners to think about as well from a volume point of view, Phil, and others like that.
Yeah. Well, we just added a load of air partners in the run up to it, so it was a little bit of a sensitive time.
It'd be interesting to see what the alliances are doing about that, Mark, from a rules point of view, because if all the major airlines have extended status, I think every airline globally has extended status in most of the hotel programs, I think those rules would be waived over the next period. So I think it's going to be an opportunity for databases to reset and blow those rules away and start fresh again post the end of the pandemic and the back end of 2021, when people's status starts to come up for renewal and those rules start to try to be reinforced by the major alliances. I think it's going to be a new era.
Yeah, I agree. All right, gents, we're coming up to the top of the hour here. I've got the email address of both Stuart and Phil and myself on the screen. If everyone's interested in reaching out, you can shoot us an email, add us to LinkedIn. Happy to help answer any questions you might have about status. Guys, any parting words before we end this webinar?
Don't be scared to do a status match, but just make sure you do it smartly with the SmartMatch platform.
Yeah, I'd say before you do it, think through your strategy. I do think there's a real opportunity now. So there's a window coming up, but think through your strategy, understand what you're doing and why you're doing it. But if you do it well, there is certainly upside to be had, a lot of it.
Yeah, awesome. All right, well, with that, thank you for joining us on the webinar today. Thank you everyone for attending. We hope we all learned something about elite status and status matching today. Like I said, reach out to anyone if you would like to make contact, and thank you for listening, and see you.
Thank you.